I think it's easy to see just how big a deal this is, that in a way you had a species that for hundreds of thousands of years had developed this extraordinary ability to have a mental life, but it was effectively running around in random directions, not making real progress because there was no way of saying, this is actually the way forward. And what you're describing is what science did was it said it found a way of gradually cutting out the negative signals where someone was running into a brick wall or running backwards and saying, no, cut that out, move. And so that creates this process whereby we gradually start to get closer to an understanding of, quote, reality, unquote. I mean...
Even without the quotes.
Even without the quotes.
It really is an understanding of reality.
There really is a reality out there. And it matters that we slowly start to model it in some ways in our minds.
Yes. Now, error correction is an extremely simple concept, although very profound. I mean, absolutely everything depends on it, since everything depends on knowledge. And knowledge doesn't come to us on a silver platter. So everything depends on error correction. But although that's a simple fact, arranging for that to happen is not at all simple. It's incredibly sophisticated. We do not understand it. So we don't understand it either on the level of how creativity works in a single human mind. And we also don't understand what it takes in a culture for the culture to support error correction, because it's almost paradoxical. What we want is a system for correcting traditional knowledge, but tradition, by definition, is something that stays the same over generations. And so Karl Popper coined the phrase, a tradition of criticism. This is an extremely unusual form of tradition. It's happened very rarely in human history. And the one we call the scientific revolution is the ancestor of everything good we have today. But we don't know what it takes for a culture to have a tradition of criticism in it. Now, we are very lucky and we take for granted that we have things like the scientific community, the scientific tradition. We take for granted that if a professor is asked a question in a seminar and says, "You're not allowed to ask that, just trust me, I'm the professor," he will be laughed at. Although there are many areas of life where he wouldn't be laughed at. But science is one where it's taken for granted that criticism is part of the culture. It's part of the tradition that's passed on.